Hey everyone, on today's episode of Show and Tell, I'm going to break down this photograph that I took of a good friend of mine named TJ. I'd also like to give a big shout out to today's sponsor, Skillshare. I'll be telling you a little bit more about that coming right up. So with these personal portraits I've been doing lately, I've just been drawing on people in my circle, friends, friends of friends, people that I might be connected with through social media. I'm not going to talent agencies or modeling agencies. I just want to photograph people, and they don't have to be any particular kind of person. So one morning I'm sitting at my house, I'm having my morning coffee, I'm scrolling through Facebook, and my friend TJ makes this post about all these chairs that he has. He and his wife had recently just moved into a new home, and they had bought a dining room set but didn't really quite like the chairs, so they bought some different chairs for the table and did the same thing for a breakfast little nook table that they had going on. Liked the table, didn't like the chairs, but it all came as one set. So they got some more chairs, and suddenly he had over 20 chairs sitting at his house that he needed to do something with. So I saw his post and I called him right up and I was like, dude, what are you doing today? Can I come over and photograph you with those chairs? And he was like, sure, I guess. I'm not doing anything but trying to figure out how I'm going to get rid of all these chairs. So I was like, don't get rid of them yet. Let me come over. Let's make a picture with these chairs. I had no preconceived idea of what I was going to do with the chairs, but it just kind of struck me as something I needed to go do. So my son Caleb and I, we run over to the studio, we grab all my gear, and then we head over to TJ's house. Now, when I'm doing these personal portraits, I usually spend the first 15, 20, 30 minutes walking around the person's place. I ask, where can I go in your house, or where can I not go in your house? And I just spend time walking around and looking at the place. And I had some idea that I was going to stack these chairs all up in some manner. Not really knowing how, but that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted a big pile of chairs and then to shoot a portrait of TJ somewhere with all these chairs. So I finally settled on this one spot in his living room. And I decided, okay, here's where we're going to put the chairs. We had a little bit of an issue because there was a ceiling fan and they weren't super high ceilings. So the more we got these up, the closer they were getting to the fan. So we had to, make sure that we didn't mess that up. We also had to make sure we didn't mess the chairs up because he was trying to resell the chairs. So we couldn't get them all scratched or dinged up. We had to be careful with that. I had some old rope in my basement and I went ahead and took that because I figured we would probably need to tie these things together somehow so they wouldn't just all fall over. For lighting, I ended up using this $25 continuous light that I bought at a used camera store here in Atlanta. I actually bought 3 of these. They were 25 bucks a piece. It's just a basic old halogen video light, barn door. It takes up to a 1K bulb in it. They get really hot. And I usually keep one of these around when I'm doing these. Sometimes I like continuous light. A lot of times I use strobe. But my idea is I'm going to take this light and I want it outside on TJ's front porch coming through the windows. And I figured it would be making shadows as that light came in. And if I had a continuous light source, I would be able to see the shadows it was making in real time and be able to move TJ in or out of that light as needed instead of taking test shots to see where the light was falling and where TJ needed to be in that light. You don't need a bunch of fancy, expensive lighting equipment to make things happen. If you feel like, well, I don't have all the strobes and I don't have all the stuff and I don't have the things, you can still pick up some used continuous lights and make photography happen. Light is light. Light is light. So let's walk through this. So I figured this is where I'm going to shoot in TJ's house. And then I've got to start figuring out how I'm going to incorporate all of the chairs. Start bringing in the chairs, and I'm not quite sure how we're going to do this. And also needed to find a balance of light colored wood to darker colored wood. Some of these chairs are white, some are darker. And you can see the rope that I have going on here. I didn't know if I was going to be vertical or horizontal or end up shooting a pano and stitch it together. There you can see Caleb. Started playing with some of the chairs sort of in the foreground, moving to the background. And I had Caleb, oh God, when he had that bleach blonde hair. Like he's in a boy band. Yeah, so let me just click through these. I got TJ to go put on a nice button-up shirt and a tie. Just started playing around with elements. One thing that I am really guilty of in a lot of my personal work is I will over prop a shot, or the propping is just simply kind of amateur. I'm not a prop stylist, so I have to be careful of that. I can completely over prop or make something a little too cheesy or a little too literal. So I'm always kind of watching for that, like that frame there on the ground. I'm trying out a couple of different things. I'm shooting these at ISO 200 on the phase 1 at 13th of a second at f5. My good friends at Capture Integration had let me borrow the 40 to 80 millimeter zoom lens for the phase, and that is one of my favorite lenses I've ever used. I wish I owned that lens. It's very expensive. Kind of digging this setup. There's that frame again. It's off over on the side of the sofa now. I thought that was kind of dumb, didn't need to be there. And I'm just kind of trying some different framing, and I'm finding I like this kind of look. I like him just sort of looking off camera, a bit pensive. The direction I gave TJ is a little weird and a little dark, but sometimes if you're wanting a certain kind of look out of someone, you need to figure out how to express that. So I told TJ, I said, I want you to be sitting in this chair as though you're at a funeral. And it's not someone that you know very well. You were somehow connected to them in some way, but you're at their funeral, you're sorry for their loss, and you're not really involved with all the people there. Like I said, you're sort of kind of on the periphery of this person's life, but it's got you kind of thinking about life and death and what does it all mean. And you're just having a quiet moment off to the edge of a funeral. You got to give your subjects a story, give them a story that they're playing out. What would it be like to just be sitting on the edge of someone's funeral that maybe you knew, kind of knew, didn't know really well, but there you are at their funeral and you're thinking about life and death and all of that. That's what I told TJ to do. And he pulled it off really well. So yeah, so I'm digging that. And at this point, I'm pretty happy. Like I get this frame and I go, okay, let's make sure that it's in focus. It's definitely in focus. The exposure looks fine. Everything is looking good. If this is the only frame I shot for the day, I think I'd be happy. I'm pretty okay with this one picture. I wanted to play just a bit more. We had gone through all of that, setting all those chairs up and tying everything up. I also shot a few pictures where I kind of captured a little more of the environment. So if I want to go in and stitch all of that together to make kind of a larger field of view, then I can do so. I have that information there. I have more of the room, the ceiling, the floor. I thought I'd try something different, like, okay, let's see what would happen if you were laying on the floor and putting your feet on the chair, and it didn't really work very well. I didn't like it. There's Caleb for some reason. So got a few more, and then I brought the smoke machine out, and that was my picture of the day. Yeah, so just shot a few more with that. Tried going in tight. I didn't quite like it as tight. I'm also going to walk you through some basic adjustments that I did to this picture in Capture One. But before I do that, let me tell you about today's sponsor. Skillshare is an awesome online community that has thousands and thousands of classes. Everything from cooking to interior design to graphic design to Photoshop and Lightroom and photography and video editing and business skills and entrepreneurship and everything. Two classes that I have been enjoying lately are Think Like a Chef by Kenny Monroe, where he walks through, it's kind of like a beginner's guide to cooking, and it's basic skills that I'm still trying to learn in the kitchen. I've also been taking this graphic design basics class with Ellen Lupton and Cooper Hewitt, and just looking to kind of expand my abilities. I'm not a great designer. Like, I'm confident in my photography, but if you put me down to start designing something on a page, I'm not the best at that, and I would really like to become better at it. So for less than 10 bucks a month, you have access to these amazing teachers, these amazing classes, and the amazing community of people who are taking these classes, interacting with the content, and learning new skills. So in the description below, you're going to find a link to Skillshare, and if you sign up, the first 1,000 people who use my link, you will get 2 months free of Skillshare. 2 months, fully free, the full platform, every class, for free. So first 1,000 folks that use my link, you will get 2 months for free. It's a great deal, so thank you very much Skillshare for sponsoring this. Let's get back into Capture One. So when it comes to post-processing my work, for good or for bad, I usually don't do a lot to my pictures. It's usually just some basic contrast, some color correction, and I'll just push things around a little bit. I'm not heavily into retouching. It's just not what I do, for good or for bad. I am not against retouching. I don't think that it takes away from photography. I know photographers who see in Photoshop. They are capturing an image and they already can see in Photoshop what they're going to do to it. And that is just a vision that I don't have. I don't see in layers and adjustment masks and all of that. It's not good or bad. I'm not making any call on that. So typically what I first do is I just figure out, is my exposure where I want it to be? Do I want to see it any lighter? Do I want to see it any darker? You know, I'm at a good solid exposure to start with. I can push it a little brighter or not if I want. I think it's fine where it is. The next thing I'll do is grab my eyedropper and start looking at the color overall, basic, you know, white balance of the shot. And I'll just go and randomly click things. For my personal work, I'm trying to break out of the very strict, everything must be perfect. So I will go and I'll just start like putting an eyedropper on the most random things. I'm not looking for the most neutral white or neutral shadow to pull, you know, white balance from, because every now and then I'll just click somewhere in a photo and the color goes wacky and I actually kind of like it. So hey, I wouldn't have thought to do that had I not just randomly gone around and started clicking on things. So I'm liking it like that. I want it a little warmer. That's a tungsten light coming through there. It's a fairly warm light. And I kind of dig about that color. Looks good, a little warm. You know, I could go either way. I could cool it down a bit, but let's just say for whatever, that looks good. I'll check my shadows. Do I want to bring anything up in the shadows? I don't. I want this a little moodier and a little more dramatic. I'm going to bring my highlights down a good bit. Let's do that. And then clarity, I want to give it a little crunch. I've got that smoke in there that's giving it a little atmosphere. So let me see what happens when I start to pull that in. It's giving a little extra crunchiness to it. Zoom in just a bit. Well, that all looks fine. I tell you what, man, I love me a vignette. And I really want a fairly heavy vignette on this one. I really want that focus coming in on TJ and everything else just getting a little darker. I think that contrast needs to be boosted a little bit. Something like that. The reason I like this picture, and I was not trying to do this at the beginning, but it feels like my life. Like there's all of these responsibilities, and I can very much tend to be the type of person that when I get stressed out and there's just a lot coming down on me, I can put my head in the sand and just act like nothing's happening and it'll all go away. So I sometimes have a hard time confronting all the shit in my life that is about to come crumbling down. I have dealt with that for much of my adult life. And I felt like this photo sort of represents that feeling that I get. I know it's all behind me. I know it's going to come crashing down any moment. And the smoke is filling the room. But yeah. ISO 200, 13th of a second, f5.6, 40 millimeter on the XF100 phase 1 camera and back system. And that's my buddy TJ, and that's the picture I took of him. So remember, light is light. Light is light. Strobe, continuous, big light, small light, they all have their purpose. They all have their place in our life. You don't have to have the biggest, bestest, brightest, most expensive things to get out there and make photos. And you also don't have to have access to models and actors and all of these people to go make great photos. Just photograph the people in your circle, photograph the people in your life, and you can make really good, solid work out of the people you already know. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching this episode today. Thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. Please like, please subscribe, and as always, hit me up downstairs in the comment section. I always read all of your comments. I try to get back to as many questions that you may have. Feedback, critique, anything you want to tell me, hit me up in the comments. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you later. Ba-doop, 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 ba-doop. My old MacBook, dead. Almost bought a Surface Pro. Almost bought a Surface Pro last week, but decided to pick up a used MacBook Pro and get me on down the road a little bit. So cute.